everyone. Welcome to the Methods for Change and Do Not Adjust Your Stage improv comedy training session. So my name is Dr. Ali Brown. I'm a senior lecturer in human geography at the University of Manchester, and I'm one of the co-primary investigators on the Methods for Change project, which is within the Aspect Network. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to myself and a little bit of an introduction to the Methods for Change project and why we have brought you all together today to do an improv comedy session. So I'm hoping you can see my slides in a moment. So my background, I'm a human geographer. I'm interested in those mundane and often intimate aspects of everyday life that underpin our resource use. So things like waste, doing waste practices, showering, bathing, sanitations, even projects around all the silly things that people throw down the toilet. And I use these understandings of those mucky practices and materials to shift environmental policy in more sustainable directions. And laughter and humour for me has become a really important way of understanding some of my work as a way of talking about the intimate geopolitics of everyday life and sustainability. And there's a lot of work that happens within the social sciences at the moment that's looking at laughter and humour, both as a way of disseminating, as understanding sort of engagements within awkward, intimate and often political conversations, but also thinking about improv and comedy as method. So this training session has been an opportunity for us within the Methods for Change team to come together really and to think differently through other creative methods like improv and comedy. Because within the Methods for Change project, what we've been interested in doing is thinking about social science research methods and methodology and how we can more effectively communicate their power to create transformative potential across different sectors, whether that be policy, NGO, charity sectors, businesses, or commercial organisations. So I'll pop some of those details about the project in the chat a little bit later, but we've been having a fun year working with over 30 academics about how their methods create change across different sectors. And we've created a range of outputs such as these how-to guides and a range of really creative, often visual or audio resources for people to have a look through as well. So today, however, we're working with Do Not Adjust Your Stage through improv and comedy techniques, as I said before. And what I'm hoping we'll achieve today is to think about how we can develop our skills in listening and communication with research and non-academic partnerships and within our collaborations. And to be honest, to just have a little bit of fun. So whether or not you already use comedy or improv as dissemination technique or as a method, or if you're a complete newbie to doing improv and comedy like me, we just hope that you have some fun, and we're really keen to take this forward. So I'll just stop sharing for the moment. I wanted to get a sense of who was in the room really, but I can't see many of your faces. So maybe if you just pop in the chat, are you a newbie to improv and comedy? Have you used improv and comedy as a form of dissemination for your research before? Or have you used comedy or improv as methods? So if you could pop some thoughts about who you were and why you're here in the chat, that would be great. And for now, I'll just hand over to Do Not Adjust Your Stage. Thank you for hosting this experiment.
Oh, Alison, thank you so much. And we're really delighted to be here, and we're really excited to be working with all of you today. So a little bit about us. So well, I'm Nick, and with me is Matt, and both of us are part of the improv group Do Not Adjust Your Stage, as Alison said, and we perform improv comedy. Improvisation, if you're not sure what it is, basically means making things up on the spot. So we go around the country. Actually, we've been around the world. We've performed at lots of places in America, across Europe as well, making things up. It's an absolute joy to be able to do it, making up scenes and sketches and theatre, making people laugh, and actually, hopefully, making people feel other emotions as well. So that's us in a nutshell. But improv is not just good as a method of entertainment. It's also fantastic when it comes to skills that Alison mentioned, like communication, like collaboration, and like creativity. And we're going to play some games today, some improv games that will hopefully make you think about how you communicate and collaborate and how you can be more creative. So that's the aim of today. If you'd like, you are more than welcome to put your video on. Do start your video. We're not going to do anything sort of really scary and horrible. You can see that it says recording there in the corner, but actually we're going to break you out into breakout rooms for all the activities where you can't actually be recorded. So all the times we ask you to do a game or an activity, in all of those cases, you'll be in breakout rooms and you'll be hidden from recording, and it won't. So if you were thinking, oh, it'd be a bit embarrassing to have that recorded, then don't worry, that's in like a sort of separate spot, and it's just this main room that gets recorded. So actually, me and Matt are the only ones when we do demonstrations that are going to have our things actually recorded and demonstrated to those that are perhaps watching on YouTube and that sort of thing as well. I'll just see, because it's been lovely having all these things posted in the chat. Oh, a lot of greetings from India. That's fantastic. Got lots of people from lots of different places, and people that are new to improv or that know a little bit of improv as well. I like this, newbie to improv and comedy, but I do tend to use humour in my work. That's lovely. I love it. Oh yeah, lots of people that are new to this. People that aren't researchers as well, that's all right as well. Whoever you are, we're gonna have some fun today. It's gonna be very, very safe, and yeah, we're gonna play some games essentially, and maybe we'll learn a little bit along the way. So we're going to play our first game now, and as I say, in a moment we're going to divide you into breakout rooms, into pairs to play these games. So even if you don't have your camera on now, when you go into the breakout room, please do switch your camera on and your audio on so that you can play that game with your partner. Otherwise, they'll be a little bit lost, basically. And this is the first game that we're going to play. And it's very, very simple. All we're going to ask you to do is to count to 3. All we're going to do is ask you to count to 3. And we're going to ask you to do it one number at a time. And you're going to do it in pairs. Take it in turns, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Me and Matt will do a very quick demonstration and I'll start. So it'll go like this. 1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3.
And it's a bit of a mind, to be honest, maybe it looks easy, I'm not sure. It's a little bit of a mind messer upper, I think. But we're going to ask you to do that a little bit now. If you make a mistake, if you say 3 when you said 2 or whatever it is, I want you to enjoy that mistake. I want you to laugh about it. I want you to give yourself or your partner a round of applause. Okay, so that's a crucial thing. If you make a mistake, enjoy that mistake. Don't be like, oh my gosh, I said 2 when I should have said 3. Oh dear. Enjoy it, okay? And we will make it a little bit more complicated after this, just to give you a warning. So me and Matt will just do that demonstration one more time so you know exactly what you're going to do, and then we'll send you into breakout rooms to do it. So it's 1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3.
1.
As quick as you can, as many times as you can, continuously until I break you out of that breakout rooms. So here we go. We'll stick you in breakout rooms. How many we've got? We've got 14 people. So well, great. 7 breakout rooms. Let's do that now. I think that's all good. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. Open all rooms, and hopefully you're all in different rooms. Cool. So me and Matt, if you're watching on YouTube, me and Matt are going to visit some of these rooms now and see how people are getting on. If you're at home, see if you can grab someone and play 1, 2, 3 with them. And if not, in a couple of minutes' time, we'll join you and show you the other activities we've got. So keep on watching. Cool. So you should, I've just closed those breakout rooms, so hopefully you should all be coming back to me in the next minute or so. Oh, people are coming back, that's great. I'll just wait for everyone to rejoin before I start speaking properly. But actually, Alison, how did you find that? It looked like you were sort of laughing and enjoying it when I
was
saw
doing
it.
really well until you popped into the room.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. It was good. I don't know. It was just a little bit, you think it's such simple things to say, but just those little tricks, your tongue gets tired.
Lovely. So your tongue definitely gets tired. It's very complicated. So how are we doing? Have we got everyone back yet? Not quite. It looks like people are still rejoining. That's cool. Don't worry. You've got, I think, probably another 20 seconds or so. I think, is that everybody?
I think that's everyone, Nick.
I think that's everyone. Lovely. I'm going to ask you to do this another time. I hope it was okay. I really enjoyed it when I popped into the rooms, by the way. People look like they're having fun, look like they're enjoying making mistakes. And actually, that's the crucial thing that we'll talk about in a moment with the exercise. It's about enjoying your mistakes, being comfortable with your mistakes. So this second one is same again, 1, 2, 3, apart from, instead of the number 1, if you want to, you can make an animal sound of your choice. Okay, or you can just say the number 1, completely up to you. So me and Matt will do a very quick demonstration. So here we go. Meow.
2.
3.
Moo.
2.
3.
Woof.
2.
3.
Bark.
2.
3.
1.
2.
3.
Roar.
Lovely. So there you go. You can make the same animal sounds, different animal sounds. You can just say the number 1 if you want. Completely up to you, but that's what we're going to ask you to do. So I'm going to divide you into new, I'll put you in the same rooms actually to do that. So you'll be with the same partner. And that's what I want you to do. 1, 2, 3, but instead of the number 1, you can make an animal sound if you wish. And remember to just enjoy that mistake. If you make it, it really doesn't matter if you get it wrong, so you might as well enjoy it. I'll open those rooms now. Okay, so everybody is rejoining us again. Now, I'm sure you could see that we could make that even more complicated. I think in the interest of time, we're going to move on to another game. But sometimes we throw in other things, like we'll ask you to say a celebrity instead of the number 3 and different things like that as well. I'm keen to know, how did some of you find it? I hope you don't mind if I just pick on some people. Laura, how did you find doing that activity?
It was okay. I think we were trying to think of different animals for every animal noise, and that was the challenge, really, was trying to think of something different each time, which kind of distracted you from thinking about the number because you're planning the next step ahead. Yeah.
Yes, that's such a great point, and that's so interesting that often our brain kind of gets in the way of us improvising a little bit because we're thinking and almost we need to just respond and just do. So I think that's a very interesting point. And any other thoughts before we move on to our next game?
I was saying that because I come from Australia, I was trying to also process whether or not people would understand what sounds I was making. So I used the example of a motorcycle frog, which sounds like a motorcycle in the distance. And I was like, they're just going to think I'm talking about a car, some kind of automobile. But so cross-cultural stuff came up for me as well.
Lovely. That's fascinating. We've got all these other sort of thoughts going on in our head when we're trying to play this simple game. Really, really interesting. And the purpose of this is us just thinking, getting comfortable actually just making small mistakes and enjoying them. When we're on stage and performing improv comedy, we want to be comfortable making mistakes. Actually, mistakes are an opportunity when we're performing improv because they allow our scene to go in a direction we wouldn't have thought it was going to go in. So it allows us to accept that mistake and incorporate it, make it part of our improv. And I think that's the same when you're working in social sciences or lots of fields that you're working in, actually. Sometimes I'm sure you can think of occasions where you've made a mistake or said something didn't seem quite right or whatever it is, and it's actually turned into an opportunity for you. Great example, if you look up the history of blue tack. Blue tack is a great example where they wanted to make something that was this really amazing, really firm, sort of sticky substance that would stick things incredibly well. in fact, it was really rubbish. It didn't do its purpose. It was incredibly unsticky. It wasn't sticky enough. So they left it, and then someone started using it to stick paper, stick notes in the office on the door or something like that. And they realized, oh, this is an amazing product. All came from a mistake. Now everybody probably has blue tack in their drawer at home. Anyway, I'm going to pass over to Matt to play another improv game with us.
Great, thanks, Nick. So we're going to do a slightly different little game right now, which is less about vocal sort of conversation and more about physical, kind of visual conversation. But it's an interesting point, which a couple of people said about the last exercise, which is you're thinking so hard about trying to remember different animals and trying to come up with different animals that actually you forget about what number you're on. So you're thinking so much, you're kind of forgetting where you are in the moment. So one of the key things about improv comedy is just not thinking. But there's a phrase in improv comedy, is just don't ever think on stage. Always just react to what's happening in that exact moment, rather than thinking ahead or thinking about what's gone behind. So we're going to do a little exercise now called mirroring, which is kind of a listening exercise, but listening with our body rather than our ears. So we're going to divide you up into pairs again in breakout rooms. And what I want you to do is have one person out of the pair will be the leader and one will be the follower, and you can switch over halfway through. I want you to basically, whoever's leading, just to start moving. I mean, it's only going to be your upper body, isn't it? But just start moving your body, hands, face, arms, neck, shoulders. And I want the other person to try and follow them and copy them and mirror them as closely and accurately as you possibly can, as in time with them as you possibly can. Best way to demonstrate this is if Nick and I give a little demonstration. So Nick, do you want to lead?
So there you go. That's it. You don't need to do those exact actions, by the way. Do whatever you want. I guess try to make it something that the other person is make the other person look good. Make it so the other person is really able to mirror you as well as they can, I think.
Yeah, and the thing to kind of concentrate, the thing to take away from this little exercise, apart from having a bit of fun and looking a bit silly, is just not trying to preempt what the person's going to do, not trying to think ahead. Just trying to stay as in the moment as you possibly can and just focus on what's actually in front of you rather than what has just happened or what you think is going to happen. So does that sound okay if we break you off into pairs, and we'll give that a go?
Okay, so in about 30 seconds time, I think everyone's meeting rooms will close and they'll come back. They're probably very busy mirroring right now. Again, if you're watching on the YouTube, do give these games a go once you find a willing participant, because they are very fun and very silly and enjoyable to do. I think they do make you think a little bit as well. Okay, we've got everyone coming back. Lots of smiles of people that have been doing some mirroring. That's very nice to see. Well, yeah, how did everyone find that? Getting some nods and getting some some thumbs up.
It was interesting trying to mirror that, because I wasn't able to do it at the start. Then towards the end, I was kind of doing a mirror opposite rather than an opposite.
Oh yes, so you found yourself sort of switching round, so the left hand became the right. Yeah, it is hard, that, isn't it? Somebody who's noticed it's gone slightly different. Can I ask, did you, Val, did you find leading or following? Which one did you find easier or more difficult?
They were both difficult in the sense that leading, because you needed to do something and be conscious that the other person can do the same. So I wear glasses. So at one point I was going to take my glasses off and I thought, well, the other person's not wearing glasses. But then following is interesting again, because that whole, are you trying to do the mirror opposite or the opposite?
Yeah, interesting.
Can I, Nick, just going to ask a question to the whole group, which I asked Alison when we were in our breakout room, which is, did anyone find that you were able to really just focus on what was happening in front of you, what your other person who was leading was doing in that exact moment, Or did you find that at some points you were starting to try and anticipate where they were going or what they were doing? Yeah, Naomi.
I found it really hard. I was trying not to anticipate, but then I was like telling myself not to anticipate because she was doing this thing with her fingers, and you kind of are like, I feel like I know where this is going, but I'm not supposed to anticipation. So I was trying to block that out. So yeah, then I was really overthinking it.
That's interesting, yeah, because you're thinking about not trying to think about it. Great, thank you. Yeah, this is a kind of key tenet really of how we work when we do comedy, improvised comedy, which is that the best results always come from when you don't try and overthink a situation. You don't try and anticipate where the partner in your scene is going to be going, because you're kind of putting words in their mouth or putting actions in their body. You're actually just reacting to literally what's going on in the moment. Because as soon as you try and plot out something in your mind, you lose that spontaneity. So if you manage to really just exist in the moment and follow what your partner was doing there, then well done. That was really good.
Yeah, and to build on what Matt's saying, there's a complete crossover here with when you're collaborating with people. So to give an example, has anyone ever had a situation where they've been having a conversation with someone, and midway through they've started thinking about what they're going to say next, and what they've realized is they've completely stopped listening to the other person, and they've actually no idea what they've just said to us? I think that's give a nod if that is. I think that's a normal. I've definitely been in that situation. I think it's a normal feeling to be in. And so obviously you have to think when you're working with people, but as much as possible, it's good to really actually listen to what people are saying and what they're telling you, and that's going to help you collaborate with them and be more creative, because you'll really hear them and be able to then build on what they say, rather than immediately starting to think about what you think and sort of almost close that door to an opportunity a bit. And I think that can particularly work, or can particularly be a problem if someone's saying something which you don't completely agree with. So if they say something maybe in a research context or something like that, which you're like, well, I'm not sure that's completely right, then you can start to think about your response, about why that's not completely right, and then miss hearing all of what they're saying and miss something that could be really useful. So just something to think about in terms of this listening and how it can really cross over, I think, to research and to work context in general. Why haven't we created a comedy about university academic? Oh, it's very good, lots of good questions on the chat, lots of good points in the chat. Okay, we're going to do another game with you now. Again, it's got a listening theme to it, but it's also about listening and then building this time. And we're going to use an idea called yes and. This is like a key concept in improv, yes and. And what it sort of broadly means is accepting and then building. So accepting an idea and then building on it. And so we're going to play a game that looks at that. What we're going to do in this game, again, we're going to divide you into different pairs, and we're going to ask you to pretend that you've been friends with this person for a long time, and you've been on an amazing holiday with them, and you've come back and you're now reminiscing about that holiday. You're talking about that holiday and what a great holiday it was. Okay, so that's the scenario. You've been on holiday with someone, and you're now talking about that fantastic holiday. What you're going to do in pairs is you're going to start every sentence of this conversation with yes and. So me and Matt will give a quick demonstration of that. So yes and, do you remember when we went to France?
Yes, and you weren't very well at the time.
Yes, and I was really affected by the sun.
Yes, because you refused to wear sun cream or a hat or any clothes.
Yes, and I just wanted to run around in the sun and get as many rays as possible.
Yes, and you came back pink as a lobster.
Yes, and that gave me this great affinity with lobsters ever since.
Yes, and that's why you started working at the aquarium.
Yes, and that's why I am now head of the London Aquarium.
Yes, and thankfully that's why you're able to buy that enormous house in the sea.
So there you go. So it can go off in quite an unusual place because you're just agreeing and you're just accepting and building all the time. So that's what we want you to give a go at doing. You can just do one, or you can do it once and then have another go, however you want to do it. But imagine that you've been on holiday with someone, you're reminiscing about it, and now you're going to start every sentence with yes and. Okay.
Yeah. Nick,
give us a thumbs up if you're broadly happy. You get that all good.
Nick, just before we go into spoke rooms, just a kind of final thought on this is the kind of reason why we choose yes and, which will hopefully help when you're doing this game, is that it's to stop you sort of like denying something that someone's just said. So in comedy, it kind of really shuts down a kind of a scene or a sketch if you just deny the reality of what someone's just said. So if Nick had gone, yeah, we went on that great holiday to France, and go, no, we've never been to France, and that's it. That's your conversation stopped dead right there. And it's the same in kind of real life conversations. If you accept what someone said and then build on it, you have a much more fruitful conversation. So
that's absolutely right. And someone has said, can we use this yes and tactic in business development? Yes, you can. And actually, I'll talk a little bit about that after this in terms of ways that you can do that. But I'll divide you into rooms now. Sorry, I'm just moving you around a little bit. I think you'll all be in different rooms. Matt, I've added you to a room again, if that's all right. And I'll open those rooms now, and off you go. Great. I think we've got everyone back again. That's fantastic. I love dropping in very quickly on some of those. They're absolutely excellent. Can I just say the extent to which everyone was like just committing to these games was brilliant. So like, you know, massive thumbs up to all of you for that. It's really, really excellent. Basically, I wanted to come back to the can we do this in business development question, because I think it's such an on point question. And I think, because I guess the thing is, you don't want to be saying yes and all the time, because otherwise you'd just be going, yes, let's do that, and we'll do this as well, and your budget would be gone within about a day. But you definitely want to find spaces within your meetings where you're sort of having yes and moments. So some people even have a series of meetings, and their first meeting will be a yes and meeting, where it's really just about building on each other's ideas, agreeing and building. And you might end up with some things that are quite fantastical or are too, are over out of scope, but you'll come up with some amazing ideas as part of that. So you have your first meeting where you do that, second meeting or second part of the meeting where you're thinking a little bit more about the practicalities, and then a third meeting or third part of the meeting where you're making some decisions. It's almost like a green, amber, red, a traffic light system, where green is yes and, let's agree and build on everything. Amber, we're thinking a little bit more about the practicalities, and red, we're actually making some definite decisions here. We can actually say no at this point. No, I don't think this will work, but I think this will, and so on. Does that kind of make sense? And any thoughts from it? Oh, thanks for the thumbs up. Any thoughts from anyone around doing that yes and exercise?
I was just trying to say something that would make the other person laugh and forget what they were trying to do.
So you were trying to catch people out a little bit as well, and that is quite a fun thing to do. I have to say, because you were doing that, I'm going to challenge you personally in this next exercise to not do that, to see what happens when you just do something where you're almost trying to say something that just completely builds on what the other person says as well, and see how you find that. But that's definitely an option. Oh, Naomi, you've got your hand up. Was there's something?
Yeah, one thing I think started to happen in ours, although we did escape from it, was we started to kind of say the same things and just almost get a bit repetitive. And I guess that could happen if in the meetings you're describing, like the first meeting, potentially one problem could be that you kind of get the yes and people are just reiterating the same things in a different way rather than building on it or going somewhere new. I don't know, just an observation from what we did and thought maybe it translates. So if there's any tips for or detecting it's happening and changing course, or I don't know.
I think that's a really good point. And I think the one thing to think about is you can always just end that scene and start again from a new point and agree and build it up. So if you feel like you're going around in circles, then you can just start again. And this yes and exercise, it can just be a fun game to play at the beginning of a meeting where you want to be really creative. I guess when I was talking about having almost the yes and the green moment, you don't literally need to say yes and every time before that, but it's more that mentality of let's agree and build and see where that takes us in terms of ideas. So you might have one idea, agree and build on that, then think about another idea, agree and build on that, and so on. Jess, yes.
I was just going to ask, how would you suggest that we introduce that to an academic that's quite reluctant? I'm just thinking about the fact that I work with a lot of law academics who are quite straight-laced. How would I kind of introduce the idea behind just throwing caution to the wind and just thinking about anything that might happen, or even be a possibility?
Really good question. I think it's about creating an atmosphere where people are comfortable making mistakes. So that's the main reason we did that 1, 2, 3 exercise. And there's lots of sort of games you can do like that, or ways you can just encourage that. It could be with those people, if they don't feel so gamey sort of people, just be about making it really clear that at the moment you're really up for people making mistakes, or saying things that aren't quite right. And you could even try to do that yourself a little bit, I don't know, in that context of trying to free people up. So it's about that comfortability making mistakes, I think, is going to free people up to then say things even if they're not quite sure about them. So it's about creating that atmosphere, and you can do games to do that, like the 1, 2, 3 one we did at the beginning, or I guess you can find other ways of creating that atmosphere in the sort of the rules you put in place for that meeting, or the sort of way you create that conversation, I think. But does that help, Jess? Brill. I think we've got time, so let's do another activity. Matt, if you're up for it.
Yeah, so another game now. Again, we're going to split off into different pairs again. So this one's quite similar to the last one, but it's also playing with that idea of accepting what someone said, kind of acknowledging it and not denying it, and then building something on top of it. So we called this game When Harry Met Sally. It's basically, we want you to be in a pair and imagine that you are old friends and you are reminiscing about how you first met, the story of how you first met. And obviously you have no idea when you start where this conversation is going to go. Just let it go wherever it goes. The catch is, every time you start saying something, I want you to repeat exactly the last bit of what the previous person said. So you're kind of reiterating the last bit of what your partner has said, and then adding something onto it. So acknowledging that, accepting it, and then building on it. So Nick, should we best way to demonstrate this is to...
Yes, absolutely.
So I'll start. You remember when we first met, it was at the roller disco in Germany.
I remember when we first met, it was at the roller disco in Germany, and you were the most fantastic skater.
I was the most fantastic skater, and you were not bad for someone who'd never skated before.
I was not bad for someone that never skated before because I had natural talent.
You had natural talent and a very low center of gravity, which meant you never fell over once.
I had a very low center of gravity, which meant I never fell over once. And by the end, people were applauding me.
People were applauding you. A local band came in to play you out of the venue, and the mayor gave you a key to the city.
A local band came to play me out of the venue, and the mayor gave me the key to the city. And you saw all that and wanted to be my friend.
I saw all that. I wanted to be your friend, and you know what? I still do.
There we go. So that's the sort of thing that we want you to do. Just see where it goes. Me and Matt didn't have any idea where that was going to go, just to be clear. And it turned out being very fun, Matt. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. There are 12 of us. Nick, do you want to divide
yes.
rooms and then?
I'm just putting everyone into groups. Also, I'm going to have to mix you around a bit, so that's why I'm taking a bit of time. There we go. I think you're all with new people now. Send me a chat if the room doesn't work, you know, if there's something wrong with the room or something like that. I'll open all the rooms now. Cool. Have we got everybody back? Good. Oh, Matt, did you want to add anything with that that exercise at all? Sorry.
Not particularly, but one thing I want to say is that, like, when I jumped sort of in and out of a couple of rooms and was just really enjoying what I was listening to, and it was Maureen and Alison, I jumped back into your room, and the point I'd left originally, and then I came back in not too long later, and you're talking about reminiscing about the time you met when you had a very spicy curry and there was a dog between your feet. And I just love the idea that when you accept what someone said and then kind of re-acknowledge it, so that kind of that element of the conversation is really sort of grounded, and you've accepted that's happened, and then add something on top of it, it can really quickly create a kind of quite a full world, quite a full story. So I'm wondering, did anyone find that exercise easier than the previous one? No, Val?
I think Laura's saying yes.
No, that was tough. That improvisation required a little bit more thinking, and
yeah,
but it was more fun though.
Yeah. Did you come? Oh, sorry, Laura.
No, I was going to say, I think I found it easier because it sort of slowed you down and stopped you from thinking about the thing that you were going to say next more, because you had to pay attention to what the last person was saying and then do the thinking kind of after that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really nice point. Yeah, you have to if you're going to literally repeat the words that your partner in this conversation has said word for word, then it forces you to stop distracting yourself and forces you to actually listen. So it's almost like a good tip for communicating more generally. If you force yourself to almost have to remember word for word what someone said whilst they're speaking, your mind doesn't get as distracted. Sorry, Alison, do you?
Oh no, I was just going to say I really enjoyed that, and I think I felt like we were friends by the end of the conversation in a way. Like, it created quite a sense of intimacy. I think it's also about being heard by the other person. So, like, I think we weren't saying exactly word for word, but it was the understanding, acknowledging, and repeating it back that did create an intimacy, I think, in that moment.
Fantastic. And I think, as many of you have said, like Alison, you said there about it, creating a sort of intimacy, showing that you're listening. Matt said similar when he said, it's useful for general conversations. And I completely agree with that. Sometimes I host events and I have to introduce an act, and then I introduce another act, and I have a little bit of conversation or chat with them. And I find I'm constantly thinking about what's happening next, and I forget what's going on. And the way to switch that off is I repeat back the last thing they said to me, and it gives me that thinking time basically before I say my next thing. Naomi, you had your hand up as well. Is there something that you wanted to say?
Yeah, just reflecting on that last exercise, I think when you entered the room, and there's no criticism here at all intended, but I think I kind of had that feeling similar to maybe when you're having a conversation with a colleague and then a senior leader joins in, and suddenly it sort of reframes it and you're almost checking yourself. And I think that stalled my brain from just being able to say whatever, because I was not, again, nothing to do. I think I do that in work circumstances, and I don't know whether that's something that we have to continue to do, or whether you feel we should try and get away from that.
It's very interesting, and I think it's completely dependent on your senior leaders, isn't it? I think if you are a senior leader or you have leadership over some people and you're joining this workshop, then it's really something interesting to reflect on as to what extent you allow your direct reports or the people that work with you to feel like they can make mistakes or say the wrong thing. And I guess also, Naomi, it is partly to do with you. Sometimes actually your leaders can be really good at that, but it still can be a little bit awkward and a little bit of a concern. So there's a little bit of a two-way there, I think. But yeah, definitely as if you're a leader, that's something to think about. Is what can I do to make people feel that at times they can say something that might not be right. Yeah, Naomi, you want more?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, is to think if you are in a position of leadership or managing people, like how your presence might affect them. And you might feel that you're completely approachable and open and that everyone, but actually it's something to just bear in mind that people might not be as free when you're around. I don't know, self-perception and awareness of others and stuff like that.
Definitely. So we've got just 2 minutes left. So we've pretty much finished the workshop, and we were going to do a sort of reflection activity, but actually we've kind of been doing that right now. I think we've done lots of really amazing reflection and thinking about some of these things. So I'm just interested to know if there's anything else that people reflected on or thought was useful, or if not, if there's anything anyone particularly enjoyed from this session. I'd love to hear it now in the final sort of couple of minutes. Oh yes, Alison.
Sorry. I think for me, like going back to sort of social science researchers, I don't know, Laura, Laura's a co-author of the project. Like, I think that when we're doing, say, for example, focus groups and interviews and those forms of kind of talking methods, I think we're often having to plan the questions that we ask like quite far in advance and be thinking back and thinking, oh, well, we didn't ask that, so we're going to have to ask that in like the next 5 minutes or so. But I know, Laura, you do a lot of like gentle methods where the methods are slower and responsive. Like, did you have any thoughts? I was thinking maybe those methods, you're already doing that listening and thinking. I was curious to hear what you had to say, Laura.
Yeah, I think that the last task, I think I really like that. And I think that's something I'd take forward into those sort of talking methods and interviews, because that just allowing yourself to slow down and collect your thoughts, ready to ask the next thing, which you probably have been thinking about while the other person's been talking a bit, but then that brings you back into the moment a little bit more, maybe. So I think, yeah, I think I'll bring some of these techniques into research in future as a way of sort of validating what other people have said as well, and showing that you are listening and you're understanding. Yeah, it's great.
Lovely. Well,
I just wanted to say thank you as well. Sorry, there's a delay, I think. Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you to Matt and Nick for facilitating a lot of fun at the end of a hard semester. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. We've loved it. So thank you so much. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you. Thank you for all your commitment and getting involved in all the activities. You've been fantastic. Cool. See you all later.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.